We'll start this little exercise which involves creating a logo and then incorporating it into some sort of title block by working with one that we put on the web page here. So we'll click to download, and that throws up the JPG file, and I'll right click and save the image as, and I'll put it on the desktop as a tree logo. So I would hope that you'd do the same thing. Well, the next step is to import that graphic, and that's done by Draw, raster image, and I've already done it here, but what I'm going to do now is add it from the download. Remember, we put it into the desktop. It was called tree logo, so we're opening it up again, and now we can insert that logo, and I'll just pop it over here. So that gets your logo into position, or the graphic of the logo. Now we can trace over it. So I'll delete it. The next step is to trace over the various elements in the logo to make a CAD version of what was a file done by a graphic designer. Well, if you've been following along with the other movies in this section, you'll know that it's relatively easy to use the polyline command to trace over the top of a graphic designer's logo. So we're converting the graphic designer's logo into one that we can use, and it's just Draw Polyline. I'll zoom in on the canopy, and I hope you can see, because I've got drawing colour set at red, the red line just follows around the external of the polyline. So I'll hit escape, and that's left a little polyline there which I will remove in a moment. But everything on the right hand side is a CAD entity. So if I pick, say, the trunk here, it's a polyline. So at this point we could just get rid of that graphic, and we'll get rid of that one that we just threw in there. I'll take the trouble to go to Format and Images and just delete that reference, so that's gone. So now we have our graphic ready to become a logo. I think you'd probably want to add some text to it. You might add the text underneath here. So let's change our drawing colour to by layer, and we'll say draw text, single line text, and we could put the address in and put it there, and maybe a height like so, an angle of 0, and then we could copy that, and we could change that piece of text to My Design Studio. So we now have our little graphic piece of text. That'll be your Design Studio name and the address, postcode, whatever information you want on it. Although this is probably enough, you might even leave out the address at this stage, and we'll just have My Design Studio, and we can add the other later when we form a title block. So this is a logo, and this is the point to save this as a separate drawing, and we'll do that right now. We'll go File and Save As, and we'll put it on the desktop, and we'll just call it, in fact I'll take caps lock off, and we'll call it Logo Pass 1. Pass 01. So we've saved it. It's a good habit to get into that. So the next thing we want to do is to imagine that this was sitting into a title block. So I'll say draw a rectangle, something like this. We want to leave some space over here on the right for the address of the location and so on. So now we could say save that as a save as on the desktop. We've got Logo Pass 1. We could call this one Logo and Title, and we'll overwrite that one there. So we've got logo and title now all in one. You could do something interesting by putting a fillet around the corner, but more interesting, we need to get this to a size that will work for us on a typical A2 sheet, or in the metric environment, or a typical, say, architectural C sheet in the US Imperial environment. The next step is to size this logo and its title block. Let's measure roughly from one side to the other, and I've got 35,000 units. The size of this is going to very much depend on how you put the graphic image in. What I'm now going to do is draw a line, and I'll just put a line somewhere down the bottom, and I'll move off in the direction to the right. I'll turn polar on, which is clicking in the status line on the word polar, and I'll just type 100, and I'll hit the enter key and then exit from there. You may be able to see a tiny line down here at the bottom. That tiny line is in fact 100 units in length, and that's a reasonable size for a title block and logo. So we need to scale this, and the way that's done is select everything there, the rectangle and or the logo, right click and pick scale, click down on the bottom left corner, then come up to say the right corner and then scale down, and you should be able to see the logo scaling down. I'll do this in a couple of steps. So I'll click and then unselect all, right click and zoom extents. There's our line and there's our logo, so we still need to scale it further. Select everything again, scale there, go out to the right and bring it down to somewhere close, if you can get it somewhere close to the 100 units. Now I'll grab everything. There, we'll zoom extents first, so our logo is sitting up here. I'll grab everything in there, right click and move, mark a point there, and then just move it down near the 100 unit line, and I'll zoom extents. Now you don't have to be too fussy, it's not exactly 100 we just want somewhere near it. But we're going to save this as a single file, and we'll use it and insert it in any drawing that we do in future. What I will do is take the opportunity to select everything and move the bottom left corner to coordinate 0, 0. That's using the 0 on the top row of my keys, not the numeric pad, and hit enter, right click, unselect all and zoom extents. So we can now save at this point, and the title block and its logo is about the right length to put into a layout space. And the next little step here is to show you how that's done. So our aim is to use this information over and over again, and to do that I want to save it as a separate file. So it's file and save as, and we'll overwrite that earlier one, logo and title. So it's the right size, we'll replace it, and now we can close there. We can start a brand new drawing now. We'll just pick up the default, and what we'll do is go to format and layouts, and we'll create a new layout, and I'll pick, let's imagine we're working in the Imperial environment. I'll pick architectural C size sheet in a landscape view, and we'll go OK. Now down the bottom of the screen you'll see a tab that says layout 1, and if we go to layout 1 there's an architectural C size sheet. The next step is to bring into this drawing, which currently has no name, we're going to say file and insert a block, because a separate drawing is known as a block. We can bring it in, adding it from another file, and there it is, logo and title. We've saved it on the desktop, we know where it is, and we'll bring it in. You could tick that little model space, and we're going to select it and insert it into this drawing, and in comes the logo. Can you see how it's anchored at that right hand corner? So now we go back to model. There's nothing in the model at the moment, and everything that you draw in model space is full size. So we're going to repeat the same technique. We're going to say let's insert a block, and we'll retain it as a single block, and we'll say add from another file, and I've picked up one from the design area of the library, and I'm going to say OK, and we're going to insert it into the drawing. So in comes the block, anchored at the left hand side. I could type 0,0 for my insertion point, but we'll just leave it at that point. So now when we go to layout, if we create, we right click here and say add a viewport, I'll add a viewport like so. It's just a porthole into the design. Then when I double click on it here, I can adjust what I want to show in that space. So let's display that on the layout. So can you see that the design is now showing, in this case on an architectural C size sheet, and when we go into model and we say we make an inquiry of the drawing, so let's say how far is it from the back of the deck to the back boundary, you can see it's 39 feet. So this is a true model drawn with decimal feet as the base. Exactly the same applies in the metric area, except that your numbers will be larger because the base unit is millimetres. So whatever you draw in full size appears in the layout space, and our logo sits in there as a separate little drawing that we can use over and over again. The final step might well be to pick the floating viewports that we see, and we'll just adjust the colour of these. We'll say we're going to select colour and we'll make them white on a white background, unselect all, and everything that's in the floating viewport changes, but in the block here we still see the boundary of the block. Now you can edit the block at any time by selecting and editing the block, and here you could put other information on the location of the site, your email address and so on. But I think there's well and truly enough information in this little series. What I hope to have shown you is that your title block information is saved as a separate drawing, it's inserted into layout, and then you work in model space most of the time. Whatever you put and draw in model space can automatically appear in the layout space along with your appropriately sized logo.